Mataji is a nun from the Vedanta Society at the Convent of Santa Barbara. Along with her small group of fellow nuns, she oversees the maintenance of this very lovely 45-acre property overlooking the Pacific Ocean, as well as managing the bookstore, a favorite of Swamiji's, and facilitating the numerous public activities and pujas at its splendid temple. She's also the Hindu chaplain at Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara. A highly respected writer on Vedanta and the history and growth of the Vedanta societies, Mataji has written many books, such as My Faithful Goodwin, a biography of J.J. Goodwin, disciple of Swami Vivekananda, a portrait of Sister Christine, and Interpreting Ramakrishna Kali's Child Revisited, co-authored with Swami Tyagananda. As a renowned scholar on Hinduism, she is a very popular speaker and speaks frequently at colleges, universities, and interfaith gatherings. She has presented papers at the American Academy of Religion, the East-West Philosophers Conference, and Boston University's Institute for Philosophy and Religion. Mataji was the Hindu representative at both the Dalai Lama's 2006 Gathering of Hearts Illuminating Compassion Conference, as well as the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu's 2008 Seeds of Compassion Conference. We are very much looking forward to her talk today, the title of which is A Fresh Start. So happy to start the year off with you, Mataji.
Good morning, and Diane makes me sound a lot more interesting than I actually am. So let's take that into consideration here. I'll start with the chant. Om asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma chotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through ourselves, O Lord, and protect us always with your sweet, compassionate face. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Good morning. Ooh, interesting. It's a blackout already in New York City. Wow, first. So I'm really happy to be here. Happy to see everybody again. It's great to be in New York all the time. And I just obviously wanted to talk about the new year because it is the beginning of the new year, and I wanted to talk about a fresh start because that's what we tend to do in the new year, thinking it's my opportunity for a fresh start. You know, the beginning of the new year offers us an opportunity for introspection, which we rarely take because we're so busy all the time. We don't allow ourselves that opportunity. Everyone is in such a rush, everyone's in such a hurry, we don't stop and just take a breath and take a look back and take a look forward. We just need to give ourselves that opportunity because this is a time of year when we get this window. We could kind of look back at the last year or the previous years and try to get a peer into the future and see what life holds for us or what we would like it to hold for us. And just because we're so used to being frantically busy all the time or thinking that's how we ought to be, doesn't mean that we shouldn't take this opportunity to really look at ourselves and look at where we've been and where we want to go. And this isn't about auld lang syne. It's about really taking a serious look at our lives and saying, this is where I've gone, this is the path, these are the trails I've taken, and do I want to continue on this trail or do I want to take a new path altogether? Because I actually have a choice to do something, and this might be that perfect opportunity to kind of take that breathing space and look at things. And we shouldn't shortchange ourselves and say, oh, it's been fine. I'll just keep doing it. I'll just keep doing it. We shouldn't do that and keep plodding on the way that we have the previous 365 days or 10, 20, 50 years. We should give ourselves this opportunity, allow ourselves that little bit of introspection and say, okay, this is where I've landed, and where do I want to land in the future? It's sort of like the New Year's is like being on the top of the mountain. You can kind of look back, but you need to look forward through the fog. See where you're going. So we need to take that breathing space. And as we begin the new year, we can sort of like decide, is this where I want to go? Because it's time we often want to make a fresh start in the new year. It's sort of like why people make resolutions. It's going to be different this year. So it's fresh outside. We want it to be fresh inside. I want to go in a different direction. Let's do it. Let's do it. And people often make New Year's resolutions. Interestingly, 66% of young people make New Year's resolutions. 38% of older people make resolutions because they've had, how many years of blowing them off. And they found that most people by January 31st have blown off whatever resolutions they made. So it's like the older people are going, oh, forget it. I didn't do it 50 years ago. I'm not going to do it this time around either. And interestingly, not surprisingly, when they did a study of what people's resolutions were, they were all about their body. Yeah, big surprise, right? So get more exercise, lose weight, eat more healthy food. And then down there too, it's like, get my finances together this year for sure. But there was also, it's like, what else do we want out of life? Resolutions are famous for not sticking. That's why people don't really keep them later. But then when we decide not to go through with something, are we just saying, I was happy enough last year. I was close enough. I don't need to change anything. And this year will be just the same. I'll be really happy. I'll be content with my life. This year I'm going to live I'm going to live forever, in fact. And all my friends are going to live forever. And people will love me forever. I'm never going to lose anybody. I'm never going to lose any of my own capabilities. And we can continue on in this little fairy tale as long as we like, until life whaps us on the side of our head and says, it ain't like that, baby. It ain't like that. Be realistic about life. And the truth is, very few people are really satisfied about their life. They want something different. They're really, either with they themselves or with their situation of their life, they're not all that happy. They're not content with it, or else they wouldn't bother with the resolutions. Now, the problem with the new year, and we thinking, okay, I'm going to turn over a new leaf, is we got to deal with the old leaf. That old leaf ain't going to go away because it's still there. And unless we make a decision, it'll stay there. Now, what this old leaf is our habitual ways of thinking, our habitual ways of thinking that we just moved right into action. That's the old leaf. And it's very, very hard not to continue with those same patterns of habits of thinking about ourselves, of who we are, who others are, and following those right into actions. It's very hard to do that. They know we can decide to lose weight, we can lose 10 pounds, we can eat more healthy, but we might feel better physically. Well, definitely if we keep up these resolutions, we get exercise, we eat better, we lose weight, we'll feel better, but the mind will stay the same. And we won't feel really any more happy than we are right now. We might feel better for a short time, but it won't last. So what do we do with that? Because we have to really deal with our samskaras, our habitual ways of thinking. And those are deep, deep habits that have formed in the mind, these grooves in our mind. So what are we going to do with them? It isn't like that's why the New Year's resolutions generally don't stick, because these new impressions come in and we go right into those grooves of the samskaras in our mind. And we're just replicating the same thoughts, same actions, which turn out, to have the same results. And we can either keep them and decide we're going to live with them, but that's no way to really be happy. I mean, we can just kind of get by, but it's no way to really have joy in our lives. It's no way to really be fulfilled. And that's basically anyone wants. It's good to be strong and healthy. It's good to be physically fit. It's good to eat better. That's all. It's good to push away that piece of cake or that martini or that cigarette or the joint. It's good. Push it away. Go out and get that exercise. Drop that joint. Never did you any good in the first place. But why did we do that in the first place, and why did we drop it? Why? Because we just want to be happy. We just want to be happy. Okay. So it would be so nice if the habits if we make changes in our life with eating and drinking and smoking and exercise. It'd be so nice if making those changes actually made us happy. But they don't. They don't. I mean, we'll feel better, but they're not going to actually make us different. They're not going to make us different people, which is actually sort of what we want. We sort of want to change everywhere. We still want to be us, but we want a better us, and we want a better out there. But the problem is there won't be a better out there because we see it through these lenses, which is us. It's a subjective problem. That's what we have to deal with. So making these changes won't make us any more complete or whole or happy than we are already, because the problem is we're already perfect. We're already infinite. We're already divine. We just don't know it. We don't act like it because we don't know it. It hasn't reached our stage of realization yet. So we go through all these little small fixes in the hopes of trying to get something better out of it. It won't happen because everything has to be from in here. As Swamiji tells us that we're the children of immortal bliss. Yet we're poking our noses around in the mud. It's like, oh, if I lose 10 pounds, then it'll be better. It's like, no, it won't. Your clothes will fit better. For sure, you'll finally be able to zip up that pair of pants, but you're not going to be considerably happier by zipping up your pair of pants. You can always buy a bigger pair and lose your self-respect. Go ahead. The truth is, we have to really take a step back and say, okay, well, what do I want? I want to be happy. Well, why aren't I happy? Well, because this and this and this and this. But we sort of, if we have the tendency to put our attention on our physical liabilities and our physical goals, we'll miss out on in our mental habits. We'll miss the bigger goal of we'll get lost in the weeds, and we won't really ask ourselves the question of who we are and why we're here in the first place. What's the point of all this? What's the point of all this in this absolute circus of a world? Why are we here? It's not to lose weight. It's not to throw away the joint. It's something much grander. It's to figure out who we are and why we and the fact that we forgot it, and the fact that we can have it because it's who we are. It's who we are in the first place. But we're just rooting around ourselves and masquerading in all these, pretending that we're, believing that we're small, believing that we're limited. It's like the eternal Halloween, that we're wearing all these costumes and treat each other as scary people with costumes on, instead of seeing the oneness that unites us, instead of just being that child of divine bliss that Swamiji assures us that we are. So we have to look within ourselves. We're all love and all joy and all true peace that we really want, where it's there. It's there available to us. And you would say, okay, well, if my nature is so pure and perfect and untouched by anything, then yeah, that's great, but how come I don't feel it? Because I'm really aware of being, call it what you will, small, limited, at the mercy of everything out there. I feel the problems of aging. I feel grief, anxiety, loneliness, the ability to not connect. These are the things that when we go small, when we identify ourselves as this physical mental being, that's where it goes wrong. We have to continually remind ourselves who we are and to pull ourselves out of that Halloween costume that's become like burning polyester on us. It's painful to limit ourselves. It's painful to be stuck in that identification. So we say, okay, well, that's great. It's great to be so infinite, but I really don't feel so infinite. I don't feel so pure. And believe me, I don't feel perfect. Not dealing with the traffic. So then it's like, well, why? Why? I mean, I could talk about Maya, but that's completely, Swami Tyagananda once said to me, oh, cuckoo, you must have a lecture on Maya already ready. It's like, who wants to talk about Maya? It's so impractical. Let's talk about why am I unhappy? Why do I dread the next day? Why is it so hard to live with the people that I'm living with? That is the thing we really need to deal with, not these things out there. On a practical level, we call it Maya, but it's really of why do I conceive of myself as a small being, finite? Because of the impurities of our mind. Because lifetime after lifetime of wrong identification. Lifetime after lifetime of thinking ourselves small. Of identifying so much with our body. Of identifying ourselves as me versus them. As us, my family versus your family. Our nation versus your nation, my street versus your street, my color versus your color, my religion versus your religion. And we narrow ourselves down like that. It's so painful because our real nature is infinite. You can't divide the infinite. It's a false premise. So if we're thinking that we're separate from everybody else, it's a painful place to be. It's like if you get a cat and you rub their fur the wrong way. Yeah, we're rubbing our fur the wrong way all the time with our wrong identification, these impurities of the mind. Okay, so I've got a mind filled with a lot of mud. Okay, so what do I do about it? Well, that's sort of what I want to talk about because it's, we can decide to have our New Year's resolutions, but I think the best resolution would be to really work on our spiritual life. That is the best resolution we can have. To work on our special, that is a real fresh start. Putting our effort into, and our New Year's resolution, into really deepening our spiritual life, taking it seriously. Not making it an intellectual pursuit, not making it something we do on Sundays or when I have time. I think I could do 5 minutes right now. Now, really, I got to catch that. More like three quality minutes. I will put into my spiritual life better than nothing, right? But true. But better to take it a little more seriously. We have to. So the first thing I would say is, make a decision. I want to spend my time in my spiritual life. I really want to make a commitment to do that. Second of all, I want to get some quiet. Because the problem is we are so distracted. There's so much outer noise, and it makes it a lot of inner noise because every time there's a buzz on the phone, is it a text, is it an email, is it a call from somebody, and then we get doom scrolling, and then we've got the things on the internet that we get obsessed with, the social media, blah, 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 whatever. It's like we have to turn the damn thing off. Put it down. Have some outer quiet so you can have some inner quiet. Because if we don't have that, we'll be continually pulled out. And it's so not necessary. The world doesn't really need us all the time, except for you maybe. But the world really doesn't need us all the time. Really doesn't. We just need to have a little tranquility. And then the world will really appreciate us because we'll have something to offer apart from a grumble or a complaint on our side. We'll have something that other people will feel in our presence, a peacefulness, a kindness. They'll say, I just feel better when I'm around you for some reason, even though you look like an idiot. It's just you look good. You look like you're happy. How come you're happy and I'm not? That sort of thing. So we need to sort of make that decision, because unless we really commit to a spiritual life, we won't get what we want out of life, which is basically fulfillment, right? So that when we close our eyes in death, we'll think, I did the right thing. I made a choice. I had peace in my life. I felt real fulfillment, contentment, and I became aware of my own divinity and the divinity of everybody else. That's a good life. You can be a total unknown, but if you've achieved that, you've done good. You've done good. That's a good life. So spending time in our spiritual life is what we want and actually what we need. We just don't often really commit to it because we're all so busy and so preoccupied. So the other thing that we ought to really think about, and I don't want this to be a downer, but a sort of like let's have a little piece of realism here, is the fact we're all going to die. People think you shouldn't talk about dying because they say it's morbid, but why? It's an absolute fact of life. People will say, well, if I die, it's like, if? Honey, it is 100% going to happen. No way out of that one. If you're born, you are going to die. We don't know when, where, how, but 100% assured you're going to die. So pretend it's not going to happen now. May happen. We may all have a great new year. We may all sail right through it. Or we may have a shortened new year. We may have a fraction of a new year. We might not make it to cross the street. Because life is like that. All of a sudden, you get the phone call and the person that you totally depended on is gone. All of a sudden, the person that you thought was somehow invincible, they're off doing something else. And we're left behind. And one day, it will happen with us. We may get noticed, we may not. But we always ought to be ready for it because it is the one absolute sure thing of this world. We will absolutely die. So if we go through the new year thinking, not now, I don't need to work on my spiritual life now because I'll do it later when I have time. You may not have time. No. How do we know? Always, Maharaj said Swami Brahmananda said to a disciple, you should always be ready for me. He said that about his bedroom being a mess. But in a sense, we should always be ready for the Lord. We should always be ready for the great call. We should all have our bags packed and be ready for the great call. Again, I don't want this to be a downer of a New Year's message, but come on, let's be realistic. Life is short. No matter how long it is, it's short. And if we don't put our attention into our spiritual life and we're thinking about stupid things, it's ridiculous because basically if we should remember, okay, if we thought today is the last day of my life, we're not going to worry about the small stuff. We're absolutely not going to worry about the small stuff. It's like you're not going to worry, call up your neighbor and tell him to put that fence down. You're not going to call up your neighbor and say your noise was too loud. It's like, forget it. I don't want to even think about the dude. If it were your last day on earth, even the big stuff becomes the small stuff. Because you're not going to worry about your house being repossessed if you've only got 24 hours left, right? Everything goes into context. Everything, and what's going to be front and center is your spiritual life. That will be really important. If it was your last day, what would you want? You'd put your spiritual life front and center, and you'd also want to tell your loved ones that you loved them. You'd also want to leave everything on a good note. You'd mend fences really fast because you would not want to have anything kind of hanging over you. So why not do it now? Why pretend that tomorrow you're going to be alive? We may not. We don't know. But why leave things hanging like that? Why not? We would want to show our appreciation for people. I can't tell you how many people I know that got a diagnosis that was like, okay, you've got a limited time. And they said, I never knew how beautiful everything was until now. Now? It was beautiful yesterday. It'll be beautiful tomorrow, but you won't be here. So we have to remember that. That's a very important thing to remember. That these little joys that we're, because we get so involved in our own stupid stuff, we're not there to really take it in and appreciate it. So we don't have forever to do what we need to do. We have very limited time. So we should really think about this. And if it were our last day on earth, we would have our spiritual life front and center. 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, there was a big fire in Malibu. That's about 90 minutes from us. And Pepperdine University, all these students in there, they were completely surrounded. There was no way to evacuate. It was completely surrounded by fire. It happened like that. And so all the students were herded into the library. And there was no way they could communicate because all the cell phones were down. Everything was just like boom. And they could see the pouring down the mountain were the flames. And it was just roaring at them. And they were terrified. And so they asked the kids later, they survived obviously, so they asked them, like, what'd you do? They said, we prayed. We prayed. It's like with them, God had become a reality. It was like, it's the most important thing in my life. I'm praying. I'm praying to stay alive. I'm praying for my family. I'm praying for, but it become really real. Because that wildfire, when you see that fire going down the hill, you don't think about anything else except, you're not worried about the bills coming in. That thing is coming, is going to eat me alive. You really take it seriously. Baby, we're surrounded by a wildfire all the time. This whole world is a wildfire. We're just pretending like it's not. We're pretending like this is a different thing. And we try to escape this maelstrom of fire that we're in through a window of just dealing with little stuff, We have our little desires and our big desires, and so we try to escape through just fulfilling these little desires. And then we try to protect this house of a body. We do everything we can to keep this old carcass alive for another 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years in the hopes that we can squeeze a little more juice out of it. I'll make it go backwards. Yes, I'm going to age backwards from now on. And try to pretend that we won't lose what we will inevitably lose. We will lose our youth. We will use whatever gifts, talents we had. We'll lose our loved ones. We'll lose our memory, most likely. We may end up those people in a corner in a wheelchair. Who knows? That's not our call. But what is our call is what we do before that happens. And that's escaping the wildfire. Deal with the wildfire now, because unless we deal with it now and escape the only way we can, which is through realizing who we are, intensifying our spiritual life, making it a priority, we will absolutely go into wildfire all over again where we waltz back into the world because we have never taken it seriously. We kept thinking, I'll do it when I have time. I'll do it later because now I'm way too busy. I'm too preoccupied with other things. But we need to really take it seriously and make moves on making it happen. So I would make a suggestion that we take it seriously. I would also, how much time do I have? Good, make a point of committing to it. And then I'd make a few other suggestions, just so that we can be happier. First thing is making a point of really telling yourself you're committing to it and then act like it. And then really saying to yourself, this is a commitment I've made, and then following through on it. Which means if you haven't made a point of meditation, do it. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because, as Sarada Devi said, it's like the rudder on a boat. It keeps you, she said, at least in the morning, in the evening, make a habit of meditation. Because it keeps this world is a crazy, insane place, and we don't know when something's going to whoop us on the side of our head and we get knocked down. The rudder on the boat keeps us up because then we have a very strong center from which we can work from. Then we have a way that we can get through this world without being knocked over, without losing our ground. It's a very important thing. If you haven't taken meditation instructions, please do. Because otherwise we're sitting there going, I'll do this, I'll do that. And meditation is not relaxation. No. It's not listening to relaxing music. No. It's not going into cat space and staring at a wall. That's a cat, not us. It isn't making the mind blank. I dare you to try to do that. See what happens. It's an actual practice that is not easy. And the reason we have to commit to it is that it's really not easy to do, because concentrating our mind on something and not losing track and having to drag it back again, it's a real effort, which is why we need someone to help us along. As they say, even a thief needs a teacher. So if you're going up Mount Everest, you're not going to just put on your hiking boots and start walking up and hope, I don't need a map. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do, and I don't need oxygen. I'm just going to do it because I can do it by myself. That's pure ego. We can't do it ourselves. Come on. The greatest spiritual teachers in the world had some guidance in it. Ramakrishna, how many spiritual teachers did he have? Of course he excelled them. But then he was an avatar. Hello. The rest of us need real spiritual guidance. And we need it from someone who's been on the path and who's actually had some spiritual, he's got something. He or she has something. And you need a flame from another flame. You can't light a candle from a picture of a candle. You can't get it from the internet. You can't get it from a book. You have to have it from a living human being that you meet with. And that person can tell you what is right for you, because every person is different. Every person has a different approach, and that has to be respected. So you meet with somebody, you develop some sort of a relationship so that person can assess you, and you can talk to them, and then they can give you guidance. It's a rare opportunity you should not miss. Don't blow this one off. That's stupid. Life is short. Go for it when you can. Because it will be the most important decision you will make. It will be the one that will give you the greatest joy and the greatest fulfillment, and it will be there when you need it. Because we all will need it. We all need it at some point when things become very rough, and we'll go right back to that center, and we'll be fine. Fine. The world can collapse around us, but we know who we are, and we know why we're here. And that will give us great strength. It will give us the opportunity to learn through different experiences, and we will be strengthened by that. And we'll be able to be a source of support for other people, rather than hanging on to them and expecting them to hold us up. We will do just fine. But unless we make that commitment and do a follow-through, we're never going to get there. Another point, be constructive. I know it sounds odd. Be constructive. My spiritual teacher, Swami Prabhavananda, was a disciple of Swami Brahmananda, Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual son. And when Swami Prabhavananda was about 14, he used to meet with Swami Sadananda, who was Swami Vivekananda's great disciple. And they were just, boys, and they would hang around with this great Swami, who was tough. And he went to him and said, Abani, Swami Prabhavananda, do you know the meaning of using the English words constructive and destructive? He said, yes, Maharaj, I know. He said, no, you don't. Bring the dictionary. He said, read out to me what is constructive and what is destructive. And so he read it out to him. He said, Abani, be constructive, be constructive, be constructive. And people think, well, that's not spiritual. Oh, baby, it is. It is. It's important for us to remember, because it's so easy to look out and see fault out there. It's so easy to not acknowledge what we have in there, but instead put it out there and say, that's the problem. That's the problem. So we have to be constructive with ourselves, not tear ourselves down, because that really isn't helpful either. That's just a reverse form of egotism. It's important for us to be constructive with ourselves. Okay, I blew it here. I'll try not to blow it again. This is what I will do if this comes up again. Be constructive with others. That's very important. It's like, if you can't say anything nice, like, this is what you do when you have a dog. If you can't say something nice, leave it. Leave it. I said, leave it. They dropped the bone. Just leave it. Same thing when we have something that we're going to toss off at somebody. It's like, leave it. Put it down. Be constructive. The truth is, if we tear someone down, we're tearing down a wall in our own heart. We're tearing part of us ourselves down too. If we lash out, if we act in a way that's really unhelpful and unconstructive, we tear out something here too, because we're all one. This is all, the unity of life is the greatest truth of the world. Unity of all existence. When we don't acknowledge that and say, you're the problem, I'm not, we have a problem. We have a problem. Because I wouldn't even know it existed unless I had it in myself. But I blame you because that's a lot easier, a lot less difficult than saying, here's the issue. So, you know what? There's enough bad vibes going on, especially here in New York City. We don't need any more, right? It's bad vibes are everywhere. We need to really address ourselves in that, not add to the morass. The other thing is to show gratitude and appreciation. None of us have gotten anywhere in this life without the help of so many people. None of us, no matter what it is, whether it's our job, our family, the things that we love to do, our recreation, we've had the help, the support, and the guidance of so many people. So to take it on ourselves is like, yeah, look what I did. I was able to do that. No. We're all standing on the shoulders of so many other people, other beings even, of the Mother Earth, of all the animals. We're all indebted to so much. So before we go into this egotistic intoxication, remember how much we've gained from others and show appreciation at the time. Even perfect strangers have helped us so much. They didn't need to do that. But out of the kindness of their heart, they took it upon themselves to give us a gift that we couldn't have even imagined, helped us out when we were in trouble, showed us how to get somewhere when it was like, oh my God, I would have ended up over there, and you walked me over there. That was so kind of you. I mean, these little things can mean so much to us. The joy of receiving that kind of kindness and love is unbelievable. And to really sit and appreciate it is so beloved. You know, we're all here by grace, every one of us. The grace of our spiritual teachers, the grace of our family, our friends, our teachers, Mother Earth, the planet, the critters. We're so fortunate, and to not acknowledge it is to really miss out on a wonderful thing, because when we have that sort of sense of appreciation and gratitude, we get a lot more sweetness out of life. We become aware of all the sweetness, madhu, 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 that there is in this life. Because when we recognize it, we can just become, if we even look at our own life, with what strange ways, what winding roads did we get to come here? We would think it was an accident, a coincidence. Nothing was an accident. Nothing was a coincidence. We're here because those guys, because they were pulling us in, pulling us in, pulling us in. And we got this silly little fish here. I'm bringing them in. And we might think it was our decision. No way. Their grace, their grace. Another suggestion is, when we can, give service in whatever way we can. Now, that might be just a phone call. Hey, you didn't look while you were feeling it. Are you okay? Can I do anything? Maybe just to show up at someone's house and listen to them. So many people just want and need to be listened to. If we can do that, that's a great. No one has to be Mother Teresa. You can just be where you are, who you are, and just be attentive to, though there's a lot of suffering around us, the people put on a very brave face. But if they were listened to, it would be a great service. It would really be a great service. To acknowledge that divinity in their hearts means to acknowledge the divinity in ours as well. If we work on seeing ours, we'll automatically see theirs as well. It's a complete circle. It isn't like we're not helping anybody. We're the ones who benefit the most. It's part of our spiritual life. So, another thing I wanted to mention is, remember what changes and what doesn't change. What doesn't change? One thing. The Atman, who is another form of Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda. Call it what you will. Call it Jesus, Allah, Buddha, Yahweh, whatever, Adonai. Call it whatever you want. Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Mother Kali. That is eternal. What is real, the only thing real within us, the only thing eternal within us is the Atman. And to remember that is so important. And that whatever else throws at us, remember, this too shall change. If it's something wonderful, something like we're elated, look what's happened, I can't believe it. It's like, this too shall change. This too shall pass. And when something terrible happens and we think we can't possibly survive, we can't possibly get through the day because our life has become intolerable, take a breath. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. You can get through it, anything. So the most tragic, the most painful, everything, if we just remember, this is real, everything else shall pass. Everything. This body, this mind, this mood, everything else shall pass. And my final suggestion for a fresh start is just appreciate what's there in front of us. The smile of a child, laughter, old people holding hands, the flower growing there right in the front, the joy that you hear when people are out in the street together, the kids running and playing, the sound of the wind, the trees in Central Park, the unintended kindness of people you don't know. Just appreciate it and see it. You don't want to wait till you get that terminal diagnosis and then find out how beautiful everything is. See it for what it is now. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is indeed Brahman. Not only the beautiful, it's also the tragic, the terrible. But to see it and to see it for what it is and appreciate it. All those things, all those trees giving us shelter. What a beautiful thing that is. We have to deify everything we see because that's the truth. It is all divine, but we're just so ego-encased that our vision is distorted and we can't see it. We've got to try to pull it off and just try to remember who we are so that we can appreciate it and see it for what it truly is. Take the glasses off. And then try to be aware, as much as we can remember, of that divine presence within ourselves. Make it a habit to take just a second off of whatever we're doing. It's like, that divinity is in my heart. And that divinity, when you run into people, try to see divinity first before you see anything else. That's a great exercise. It's a great thing. It pulls you out of all sorts of strange situations. Now that, seeing our own divinity and seeing the divinity in others, that is my final and first suggestion for getting to a fresh start. Thank you. I don't know where the best food is in New York City. I can't help you with that. I don't have the personal phone number of the Dalai Lama, but yes. Yes.
So you were talking about being constructive.
Yes.
Could you elaborate more on how a person can be constructive?
Well, when you find something that you think is amiss, there's a way of dealing with it without tearing down a person. You do it in a very kind way that is not personal. And if you feel that a person has been actually targeting you, and you can really step back and look at it analytically and say, no, it's just, see if you can have a conversation, a private conversation. We seem to be having a problem. Am I doing something that's offending you? Am I doing something that's offending you? It's very hard because we become reactive. And it's very easy to just like, why are you doing that to me? And so to pull back and say, well, hold on, let me analyze this. How much of this equation did I add to? And it's quite possible that we've been at least 30, 40, 50% of the equation, if not more. We don't want to think about it because it's just we're so reactive to the fact that we've been wounded. So that's a very difficult thing.
I have one more.
Yes.
So yes, we are reactive, especially when somebody is,
lashing
in our
out.
face.
Yeah.
What's your suggestion about how to make your mind not react and to think the way you want
to take one step back and say, ooh, you're reacting, aren't you? Take one step back and just analyze what your mind is doing. It's very easy to just go forward in that, but if you can just before I say anything, let me think about how could this person have, is there anything that I have done or said or acted in a way that this person would get this opinion, this person might think this way? Because it's entirely possible that just from an expression on our face or from something that we might have said that wasn't really connected to them, but they might have taken the ball and run with it. But it's very hard. There's a quote of Swami Vivekananda that I like very much. And it was a letter that he wrote to J.J. Goodwin. And J.J. Goodwin was complaining about one of his fellow workers for Swami Vivekananda. It was like Alasinga. He was like, rah. They just were water and vinegar, water and oil. And he said, so he wrote him this complaining letter. And Swami Vivekananda wrote, and he said, we Vedantists at every opportunity should ask ourselves this subjective question. Why do I see this? Why can I not conquer this with love? And it's interesting to me that he used the word conquer. Because we're not conquering that. We're conquering this. This is what's reactive. If I can pull out and try to see the positive aspects of this person and really try to love that person. I once went to Swami Bhuteshanaji, the president of our order at the time, and I had a real problem with one of the nuns who I thought was not acting appropriately. And I didn't mention any names. I had a little private conversation with him. And I said, Maharaj, how do you deal with a person or with a fellow monastic who you don't think is acting appropriately? How do you assess such a person? And of course, he could read a mind in a second. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, you must always judge by the ruler of love. And I thought, bam, bam. Because I was so offended that this person could do these things that I became very judgmental. I was not loving. I was judging. This is not appropriate. Who the hell was I? Really?
Thank you.
She eventually left. She had some other things to work on. But it was a beautiful lesson for me. And a real lesson in humility. It's like, no. That's really the wrong way to go about it. Yeah. We become very good friends.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hi, you mentioned having a teacher, that everybody needs a teacher. So how can you find one? I know there are a lot of online classes, or you can read and you can do all those meditation. But if you don't have any...
If you really pray for one will come. There are spiritual teachers in our tradition. I know Swami Sarada has been very generous with giving initiation. I know there's some other sadhus in our order who are generous in giving initiation. But I know Swami Sarvapriyana is not, so don't bother. Don't annoy him. It's not on the table, so skip it. But every sadhu, every monastic is cut out for some things and not cut out for some things. So there are some who are cut out for that. And I can mention Swami Sarvadevananda, who is cut out for that. A very loving soul and very attentive to people, very compassionate and patient. But, there are other sadhus of our order who are, it just depends on who you resonate with as well.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to add to that, brother?
No, you can look at different centers. The Swamis offer initiation. If you want initiation from our order,
Yeah.
that's the way to go about it.
Yeah.
You can go and meet them, talk with them, see whom you resonate with before you take.
Yes, absolutely. I once asked my guru, I said, Swami, there's so many gurus and avatars out there. How do you tell the real from the fake? And he said, you must look at their lives. He said they must lead an absolutely pure life, and they should never ask for money. So if somebody out there is asking for money or suggesting that you do something appropriate, run in the other direction, call the police while you're at it. Yeah, not okay. Not okay. Yeah.
So I can look online, how do I look online and see?
Is there a website, brother?
And the different websites, Vedanta Society.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to Diane later. She'll know. I'm pushing on her. I don't know.
Okay, thanks. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. What advice do you give to a terminal patient in a hospital? What spiritual advice do you give them when they might have 3 months or 6 months left?
Actually, I don't give advice. What I do, it was, when I first started doing that, I thought that they would want to talk about end of life. Most of all, they don't. They may not at all. What they really want is for you to sit and listen to them about their life. I had a beautiful woman who was not even, I think she was 32. She had 2 kids. One was 2 and one was 6. And she had all this machinery on her body. She had probably less than a week to live. And so I went over there and I said, well, how's it going? How are you feeling about it? And she just wanted me to sit, and she told me everything about her life. She wanted a witness. And if that person wants a witness, you be the witness. If that person wants to tell everything that's happened in their life, what a blessing that we can be there and receive, because that person, it's really important to that person, that person be heard right then. So I completely go on cues. If I know the person well and they're in a coma, or then I do Jai Shri Ramakrishna Jai. It depends on the person. Sometimes I just do some peace chants, but it really depends on the person himself. If we know them, we have some sort of relationship, you'll kind of get a feeling for what they want. But you really have to be attentive to what they need at that time, and not what we think is probably the right thing to do. Because dying is as unique as their life. It happens in ways and times that we can never predict. People, they say they're going to be died tomorrow, they can leave for another 6 months. Or the people that they're saying are going to live for another year or two, it's like they're gone the next day. So and it might be our next day. So that's the interesting thing. I came in with the ideas, it's like, no, this would be good, this is good. It's like, nope. This is what they want, that's what they need. Yeah. I see over here.
So when you spoke about being unaffected by your surroundings and just sort of focusing on yourself or your Atma, oftentimes I find that I think one of the examples you gave is if you had 24 hours to live, you wouldn't care that your house is being taken over.
Yeah.
But these have very real consequences to your life. It's very difficult to sort of not be affected by these things.
Of course.
So how would you sort of advise someone to follow this?
You will have a special time that you will set aside where you do not deal with your foreclosed house. You do not deal with your child who's acting badly. You do not deal with a husband who's being a jerk, or the wife who's being a jerk. You just have that time set aside where you clear all that out of your brain, or as much as you can. This is what I'm concentrating on now. And then if you allow yourself that space for that meditation and hopefully some japa, you'll find much better reserve for you to deal with the problems after that. Because you'll have more energy, you'll have more clarity in your mind. But if we kind of let the mind just go round and round and round on those things, nothing is going to happen. You won't be refreshed, you won't think clearly, and the situation will not get any better. So you need to sort of have some time to pull back, preferably twice a day, because that'll be your battery, and you need a full battery to deal with this stuff. But we had a very close devotee who was completely there for her family. Her daughters, her husband, who at the time was a complete atheist, had no interest in her spiritual life, but she'd said, I ask from you all one thing. Between the hour of 5 and 6, leave me alone. I'm going to be in my room. I don't want none of you to bother me. I don't care what happens. And her whole life, she was that way. Her husband, of course, at the end became quite devout. And she herself had absolutely, she was dying of cancer. And one of our devotees went to see her. He worked for hospice. And he said, I'm so sorry you have to go through this. She said, I am swimming in a sea of bliss. She had a beautiful death. Absolutely beautiful death. So if we have to give ourselves that, because really it's the only thing that's going to pull us through everything else. It's like Ramakrishna talked about, you can have a bunch of zeros that are add 0 to 0 to 0, not that you'll end up with 0, but if you put a 1 before that 0, you'll have a big sum. That 1 is that hour of meditation, that time that we really devote to that. Everything else doesn't matter right then. It's like, let everything go to hell. It does anyway, whether we're there or not. so why should I get involved in it? It's like, this is going to be my time. Give yourself that.
Thank you so much.
You spoke about meditation. Even I have not taught any meditation, but I practice meditation.
Yes.
After practicing, what I feel is I get so much energy that I'm not getting sleep during nights. My brain will not shut down. I don't know how to channelize that energy which I receive from the meditation. This is the problem I'm going through.
Maybe you should change the time of your meditation so you have time to unwind and do some holy reading instead. I could give you some of my reading and put you to sleep in a minute. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
You just have things arranged in a way so that they work.
Yeah.
Because if that continues, your health is going to break down. You're going to be exhausted, and you're going to think, I can't do this because of this. No, change the time. Do it at a different hour. So you have time to really, decompress.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just wondering, your meditation must be a lot more interesting than mine.
Yeah, definitely I'll try. Thank you.
Thank you for touching the topic about death, and it is very important, art of dying. And thank you that you gave this example about that you were sitting with someone who is dying. And I was wondering, is there in our community some, program or some supportive?
Not that I'm aware of, nothing organized. But I think every center, every sadhu I know will visit people who are dying if they know what's going on. Absolutely. Every that's something that we consider very sacred. So if there's an opportunity, we'll absolutely be with people like that. It's very important. It's a beautiful service and both benefit, the person receiving and the person there. No, but nothing organized. Come on, we're part of the Hindu tradition. You think we're going to be organized?
No, but
be realistic.
I think it is Ram Das community who were speaking about this, the art of dying.
I don't know how much community there is now that he's gone. I know that there are some Buddhist communities that do that. Joan Halifax, thank you. Great gal, love her. Very much into that. But they also have larger communities. Vedanta communities tend to be kind of smallish. But we don't do things in a very linear way, but it will happen for the most part. Come on, people can't even get organized to eat together half the time. And every center is very different. but there will be something, because every Vedanta society is different. This center is different from the one across the park. This center is very different from Hollywood. Hollywood's very different from Santa Barbara, and there's a universe of difference between that and San Francisco. So you might as well be going to Mars. So there's very, like, just those guys stay the same. Everything else is going to be different. Those guys are the dearest person in the planet to me, so it isn't like I'm not being irreverent. It's just like, it's a very close relationship.
On behalf of all of us, on behalf of the Vedanta Society of New York, I want to express my gratitude to Mataji. Whenever she does visit New York, we tend to take this opportunity to grab hold of her and get her here to give a talk. She's always a very popular speaker. I do want to mention the new book on Vedanta, which is going to come out. So her book, The Introduction to Vedanta, that's very popular. And I know I've recommended it to so many people who are beginners in Vedanta. Now the new book, which is coming out, is like a companion to the introduction book. This is more on the practical side of applying it to various life situations, like you just heard, and much more is there. So we hope it'll be out in a few months, and hopefully in a few months.
Vedanta in practice.
Straightforward, Vedanta in practice. So we will see that very soon.